Algebra 2, Lesson 13, Substitution and Area of Isosceles Triangles. Starting with substitution on, wrong lesson. Starting with substitution on practice A. What's wrong with my focus? There it is. Okay, so we've got this problem copied over here. And to use substitution is kind of like what I call the plug-in method, which means that if we know that x equals all of this, if we were to take this value in parentheses, we could substitute this value every time we see x in this equation. So to use substitution to solve, hopefully, if this top equation is already solved for one of the unknowns, which it is, we're going to take that amount that it's solved for and plug it in here instead. Now, you cannot substitute if this unknown has a coefficient next to it, or if there's any other things being added or subtracted to it. It has to be entirely by itself. So since x is entirely by itself, we can substitute for x. We cannot substitute for y because it has a 7 being added to it. And then if you look at the bottom equation, we couldn't substitute anything here because the x has a coefficient and it's also got a 3y being added to it. So we couldn't just substitute 4 for x there. It has to be completely and utterly by itself, all alone. And since it is, what we can do is we'll take this value of y plus 7 and we're going to put it, every time we see x down here, we'll write that in parentheses instead. So we're going to rewrite this bottom equation, and I'm going to write 2, but instead of writing x, I'm going to write y plus 7 in parentheses. Substitute inside of parentheses. So I wrote 2y plus 7 instead of x. The rest of the equation is going to be the same. Plus 3y equals 4. Now, you'll see this bottom equation only has y's. It can be solved for y. The problem with these top two is they both have an x and a y. So we'll go ahead and get to solving for y. We use distributive property here to get 2y plus 14 equals, 2y plus 14 plus 3y equals 4. We can combine like terms with the y's. So then we have 5y plus 14 equals 4. Subtract 14 from each side. That will give us negative 10 equals 5y divided by 5. And then we get that y equals negative 2. So now that we've got y, we need to go ahead and solve for x. So what we can do is we go back to this top equation that we substituted from, and instead of writing y, we're going to substitute and write negative 2 instead. So we'll rewrite this top equation as x equals, parentheses, negative 2 plus 7. That's really easy. Negative 2 plus 7 is just going to be 5. Now once we've got both of these, we're going to write our final answer in coordinate form. So our final answer will be 5 comma negative 2 in parentheses. 5 being the x value, negative 2 being the y value. Now, area of isosceles triangles. So this triangle we can easily identify as isosceles, even though they don't tell us, because we have two equal sides. Whenever you have two equal sides in a triangle, it's isosceles, and the opposite side is the base. Now the problem is, to find an area of a triangle, we need the height. We don't have any value for the height of this triangle. So what we have to do is we have to solve for the altitude of this triangle. We can do that by cutting it in half with a perpendicular. When we do that, we form 90-degree angle down here. This 90-degree angle means that this triangle, if we were to only take one half of it, if we were only to take this side, that left side triangle would be a right triangle, which means we can use Pythagorean theorem to find that missing height. So that's what we're going to do. In this case, the hypotenuse, which is always opposite the 90-degree angle, is 3. And then this base would actually get cut in half. So instead of the base being 4, this base would be 2. And this base would be 2. So for this right triangle, we've got a hypotenuse of 3, a base of 2, and then an unknown height that we want to find. We'll mark that with h. So we've got 2 squared plus h squared is going to equal 3 squared. Squared. We start simplifying that, then we get 4 plus h squared equals 9. Subtract 4 from each side, and then we get h squared equals 5. So h is going to equal the square root of 5. Now we can find the height of our we can find the area of our triangle. So if the height equals square root of 5, all we have to do is take the base of 4, multiply it by the height, and then divide that by 2. So we'll take 4 times square root of 5 over 2, and then we can simplify this by canceling the 4 and the 2, and that just becomes 2. So the area of our triangle is just 2 times the square root of 5 meters squared.